Welcome to Netflix and Kill. Oh my goodness, Travis, I'm actually very tired. We are getting a lot of these recorded, and I feel like there's only going to be more throughout this week.
Possibly.
So if you are listening to this in the future, we have no idea when this is going to go up.
Nope.
Considering we're front-loading a lot of these.
Or, what order they're going in.
Who even knows? I say we do it by random shooting. Like, we take the notes, put them in a hat, and then throw them all up in the air, and then via Ip Man, we grab them out of the air ninja style.
I think we should go alphabetical.
Okay. Well, I mean, who is discussing weird ways to choose their movies? Why, it's me, Nick, the Merc with a mic, and my fellow apologist,
Travis,
the god of the pod himself. And, of course, we have a brand new guest for you guys. It is Hillary. Hillary, say hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hillary, I would like it stated for the record that I wanted to say Hannah, but I did not. So we met. A little backstory here for Hillary is we met her at Convergence 2018, which we had a very fun time with her and mutual friend Brian Salisbury, and I, with great confidence, called her Hannah a couple times before I was corrected and know that your name was Hillary. And I like it that I was so confident about it, I made Brian question it. And he has been your friend for the better part of a decade, I think. So I like that I had that much conviction in me being
It's rather
wrong.
impressive, actually.
But
I misheard her, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'll tell him later, and then I was like, oh, it blew up because the exact opposite happened, where now it's become this big joke. I'm like, oh, darn it! I didn't want that to become the focus.
It is now.
Oh, well.
It really is. You know, if you had visited Wisconsin more, I feel like I would remember your name. Or maybe just not messed up during the primaries.
Wow, we're really going there.
What? I mean, those jokes won't be dated 10 years from now. Come on. We're making the prime references on this joke.
Well, during the election, nobody forgot my name, so that was kind of funny. Even when I was studying abroad, because name Hillary's not terribly common, but some pretty well-known figures share my name. Nobody forgot my name abroad, but now that the election's done,
right? And
not so
now
much.
that the election's done and women no longer have rights anymore, your name has been rightfully forgotten because women are objects. Oh,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. But people still never spelled my name right, though, which is really, honestly, I forgive you. I completely, it's not even a big deal. If someone I just met doesn't remember my name, what annoys me more is when people who've known me for years, don't spell my name right. And it's not even that I'm not going to freak out, but it was like my tennis team in high school, I've been on for 4 years and they spelled my name wrong, while drawing in chalk on the ground. I'm like, great, now my name is wrong for everybody.
Everyone knows it that way. It's permanent.
I'm like, whatever, it's fine.
I like.
So trust me, when I say I wasn't bothered, I mean it. I wasn't bothered. Anyway,
it's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to bring this up on a podcast years from now in disdain. So it's okay. I'm over it. I'm over it. But speaking of misnaming, I always want to call Ip Man, which is the film we're talking about.
When Japan invaded China, they ruled with a deadly fist. Many rose to fight against them. But only one man had the secret. A warrior legend. Conquered and oppressed. Never lost his honor. Donnie Yen as the greatest martial arts master of a generation. Ip Man.
I'm always calling him by a different name. I always, for whatever reason, I always thought like, oh, IP Man, which I always thought is just a really aggressive guy trying to protect his intellectual property. But that is not what this film is.
We're not talking about
about
Elon Musk. Let's go on to a different movie.
We're not. Now who's making topical references? Good for you. But for what actually is Ip Man about? Hillary, could you give me a brief breakdown for this?
So yeah, it's about the very well-known martial artist Ip Man, who is most famously known as. While this isn't in the first Ip Man movie, he's one of the many teachers of the very, very famous Bruce Lee. That's his most famous student, and he was a master of the Wing Chun Wushu, basically, or Kung Fu. Mm-hmm. And the first Ip Man film, which we are focusing on here, chronicles the very loosely, can't emphasize that enough, based on a true story. It's supposed to chronicle his time during the Second Sino-Japanese War. And that's kind of the film takes place a couple years before and then during the Japanese occupation of China. So that's that's an intro to the setting. Do you want me to talk about the overall plot?
Sure. Like, what's going on with Ip Man? What's he actually doing in the movie? Like, what's his arc? Because I actually find it interesting in the fact that this character doesn't seem to have much of an arc, in the fact that he doesn't seem to learn a whole bunch. Just a bunch of stuff kind of just happens to him. So
yeah, he's a pretty static character. I think for as an American viewer, there's a lot of interesting parallels with Rocky in a lot of areas that I can get into later. But on its own merits, it's about a married man who's a big center of his local town's life. He is a very, very well regarded, but still unofficial master of Wing Chun, and he is so good that he even defeats the masters of a lot of other schools in the area, albeit, in private affairs, and more meant to just as a means of social bonding, as opposed to like trying to demonstrate his title or status. He's supposed to be a very humble family man, and humble, I guess, member of his community, who is often, because of just who he is thrust into the spotlight, even before the Japanese occupation comes in. He very much is, by definition, a character things happen to, because he has kind of this very strong policy of non-engagement unless absolutely pressed. And he's a little bit of a guy who kind of goes with the situation as it's presented to him, which can sometimes, in the eyes of other characters, come across as a little perhaps wishy-washy or a little non-committed in the case of some issues with his wife. But this comes to a head basically as the film, which starts off showing his happy life in town, when all that comes to a halt when Japanese occupation of China comes in during the Second Sino-Japanese War. And in the film, his estate is taken, the majority of his wealth is taken, the majority of the community's food source is taken. There's a real emphasis on loss of identity, and specifically of Chinese cultural identity, in this film after the Japanese occupation, with Ip Man's mastery of Wing Chun being a big part to not just reaffirm one's cultural pride, but in the case of the film, it becomes a big point of self-defense against an occupying force as a concept. And as far as I'm aware, that's actually a reoccurring theme in the other Ip Man films when the villain becomes British occupation and colonialism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've watched Ip Man 2. We have not watched Ip Man 3.
Or 4. Isn't there a fourth one?
I think there's some other one. Yes, there's a prequel, and then there's some that are about him but not starring Donnie Yen that are different companies that do the story. It's a very popular story, and they've been trying to make it actually 30 years before this movie even came out. Mm-hmm. And this movie's already 10 years old. I love that Hillary was breaking down a lot of the themes and overarching plots, and all I was thinking of was how to get Win Chun into a pun here, and this is all I got, is that he's such a relaxed guy. He wants everyone to have fun tonight. Everyone Win Chun tonight. And it is terrible. Mm-hmm. It is awful, and I feel bad about it.
You should, actually.
I don't... so I realized that last 5 minutes have just been completely wasted. I'm glad Hillary was there to save us.
Well, I find amusing that you mentioned that, like, oh, it's loosely based on a true story. I'm like, yeah, but all movies that are based on a true story are so loose at this point in day and age.
Well, yeah. Well, looking it up...
Well, but this
he was...
Very much so.
Go ahead, Hillary.
This works more as, like, what it means to... It kind of works more as, like, what it means to you, whether it resonates with you emotionally. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're looking for an actual, accurate look at Ip Man's life, even his outlook, this isn't the movie this is not the movie you want to start with if you're just going, I want to learn about Ip Man himself from the most factual source possible. This is not it. Almost nothing. Like, especially when the Japanese occupation comes, a lot of the story just straight up doesn't happen. Some of the stuff he wasn't even physically there for.
Yeah.
In some cases. That doesn't mean, of course, the Japanese occupation wasn't a big deal for him. I'm not saying that at all.
Only, like...
What I mean is he might have parts where he wasn't physically in the town the movie takes place in sometimes.
As far as I can tell, the only part that have actually kind of sort of happened was the first 30 minutes of the movie where before the occupation takes place. Like this, that's like he was a center of the town. He's actually town sheriff. Like he was, he was actually a cop. Yeah,
he was a cop.
Because he was very honored and respected amongst his community. That was also true. Like apparently this guy was humble. He did fight a lot of people in closed doors matches. So a lot of people there was a lot of myth built up about his fighting ability since so few people actually saw the dude fight. So that part was pretty accurate. Other than that, once the Japanese invasion happens, like that part does happen. The Japanese do invade that town, but I'm pretty sure he's not there for any sort of majority of that occupation, and I don't think he loses his house either.
Well, but he lost his house under different circumstances because in Chinese politics, there's also the nationalists versus, the Communist Party. And he was a nationalist. He's very much, that played a big thing in a lot of cases too. Right. And in the movie, I don't recall them explicitly mentioning that he was a sheriff in the film. No. Like, they tell you that in his biography, but like not in the film. If anything, they make it, you don't see him do, they even kind of say in the film he is able to have the free time to master a lot of this stuff, whereas in real life it was a little different, and they definitely in the film downplay his background as a sheriff.
Well, in the film it feels like they probably didn't want to make him a cop because that would make him more of a real person, and the film is much portraying him as this legendary figure.
Yeah, who just kind of exists in the town because he's so awesome.
He's almost more fairy tale than man in the movie.
Yeah. In a lot of it, kind of again, I think there are a lot of parallels to the story of Rocky in a lot of ways. Kind of that. Well, I mean, and it kind of works more on that level.
In Rocky, the end of this movie, we'll get to it in the spoiler section, but the end of the movie does remind me of Rocky IV, where Rocky defeats communism and defeats Russia via a boxing match and one final victory speech. Which is, man, I love Rocky IV. But talking about this movie.
That was good. It's very interesting to see, like, what works really well with Ip Man, what like, on its own merits, how it compares to a lot of other similar things like Rocky, how it functions in the realm of soft power and, soft power politics in cinema. It's got a very interesting position, and has some excellent choreography and fight scenes.
Donnie Yen is excellent in the part. I doubt anyone else could have brought that level of physicality to Ip Man. He's a great martial artist. And I love the way the film looks. The camera work is amazing. The set design is great. Mm-hmm. I feel like the camera quality is always pretty good on movies like this because when you get to Donnie Yen stage, you actually have to have a higher end camera.
Right, you're forced to because otherwise you can't see him.
Because you can't see, he moves so fast that if you don't have a fast enough frame rate, you will not catch his movements. It'll look like bad editing, but it's not. He's just too fast to photograph, which is amazing to me. That they need no, Donnie, slow down. no, yes, it's impressive, but we can't see it. Like, man, run it again.
A problem I'm sure we wish we all had.
Well, I mean, even at this point, like we have the fight scene, two fight scenes in the beginning, and then the epic fight scene in the middle, which everyone is probably the one that everyone remembers, and then a fight scene at the end. There's actually only 4 real fights in the movie. Oh no, wait, there's the one in the factory. There's about 5.
Yeah. Well, the factory one's good.
Yeah, I really like the factory one because that's where he gets if you see the poster for this one, he's holding this unbelievably long pole.
Yep.
And you're like, that doesn't seem very practical for fighting.
And yet, he makes it good.
It's just really, real fun. And at some points during the fight, I legitimately really think, I think he has 3 arms. Like, he's hitting people so much, so quickly, that you're like, it almost like in an anime where they have the after image effect to show people are punching fast, and they show that the guy has 3 right arms or something. It's like that, but in real life.
The Donnie Yen just has that.
He's just that good.
He's just so well. I mean, at a certain point in this film, it's almost like he goes Super Saiyan. Like in the beginning part of the film, he's very much a very affable guy, and he accepts the first fight, even though the guy is being kind of rude.
Yeah.
To be honest,
He comes into his house during dinner and I want to challenge you.
It's like, well, we're eating right now. Could you wait a second? I'll wait here and wait. Look, I'm having a private dinner with my family. If you could just fuck off until another day. But this guy, I forget this guy's name. He was also another master around the area. He's so excited because he feels like he's trained a lot and he's improved his skill enough to where he can challenge the master. The master. And everyone does seem to regard Ip Man as Ip Man is the tip-top best. No one can top Ip Man. He's the end-all be-all for martial arts around here. So if you can even hold your own with him, it's supposed to be impressive. And so Ip Man holds a closed-door fight with that guy. He gets his ass straight kicked. And it's like Ip Man doesn't even... Ip Man looks like he's having a hard time not hurting him.
Right.
He's very controlled into I don't want to hurt this guy, but I do want to make sure that he knows that he's nowhere near my level yet. So, and then there's the conflict brought from that is that there's another character who sees the fight because his kite gets caught in a tree, and he witnesses the fight, and he's like, "Oh my god, guys, you gotta see this! Ip Man whooped serious. This guy was a total bitch, and he starts talking shit throughout the entire town, and of course the master gets super pissed." And the guy goes "Hey, Ip Man, back up my story. You kicked his ass, right?" And Ip Man really is put in a serious position there because I don't want to badmouth this guy. His whole reputation is how he gets students and everything. But I mean, I don't also want to lie. And that's not honorable either. So he really is caught in a precarious position with his honor, and only really brought onto himself because he's so good at what he does. People are gravitate towards him, whether they want to challenge him or just see him fight or be trained by him. He amasses a presence just because of his strength, really. And then we get the first real fight where he takes a fight actually seriously, in which these out of towners, or what do they call them, outsiders?
Well, they're from northern China, right. And then this town Foshan is situated in southern China, so there's a regional pride thing going on, and Gene is his name.
Gene, that's right. I keep wanting to say he's Vegeta because it's that's just the role he's fulfilling. That's not his actual name. And
he's a very fun character.
I like this guy a lot.
He has great personality too.
He comes in the sequel in in Ip Man 2 as well, and I really like this. He's fun. He's very.
I think that's why they brought him back. You could tell he's a popular character.
And he challenges the first guy, the first master, and he's like, "Hey, I want to see if is it a challenge?" And he's a little aggressive about it. But he still requested a challenge.
Right.
And it's not like he was super aggro about it. But as he starts to defeat more and more masters, he gets more and more overconfident and more arrogant. to the point where, like,
Well, to be fair, there was the one guy that attacked him with a glaive.
okay, so he escalated that.
Yeah.
Like, that was on him. Like, he should probably not have gone to edge weapons immediately after that. Because I feel like that's how people get killed. But,
Yeah.
but they're very, I feel like once you're at that level, you're so good at what you do that you can have a fight with weapons like that and easily not kill each other.
Sure.
I guess. Otherwise, I guess you could. I mean, I would. Otherwise, you could make a case for that he attempted to murder him.
Yeah.
So, he defeats all those guys, and he's like, I'm gonna create my own dojo here and show all you Southerners how it's really done. And then, of course, the Townsend's like, yeah, but you didn't defeat Ip Man. Who? Ip Man,
The best.
like the best guy around. Everybody knows Ip Man, dude. And so he, without a care in the world, because Ip Man knows this is going on, does seem to want to go fight, but has been catching heat from his wife.
He's kind of in the doghouse for constantly fighting every day.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, I should really stay here and spend some time with the fam. You know how that is. And so when the fight comes to him, he even doesn't want to fight then. He's like, hey, look, I'm having a day with my family. You barge into my own house, and I'm just to challenge me? No, fuck off. Go away. Like, he kind of lays down the law, and then when Jin starts to talk shit, even towards his wife is like, okay, you know what? Kick his ass, honey.
Yeah, exactly. Don't break my things. That's what she
Yep.
says. Which
Mm-hmm.
that rule does get broken, but
He says, I'll pay. So
Repeatedly.
yeah, says I'll pay and he never does.
I don't think. Yeah, I'm like, you don't look like you can pay.
He never pays.
Like your clothes look like you haven't washed them in like
No, he's
3 weeks.
got hobo chic going on.
He has
Yeah,
hobo
like-
chic.
Well, like, it's important to note that, like, Ip Man it's not clear where the wealth came from in the movie, but wherever he's from, he came into wealth because
Yeah.
his house is very, opulent, like, not like opulent in the sense of, like, decadent, but it's clearly, like, made of very fine material. It has a lot of really, beautiful artwork in it. So it's kind of an interesting, portrayal of Gene, who comes by looking like he's just been camping for like the past couple of weeks. Looks, very strong, and even his blunt weapon is very not flashy. Like, it's very intimidating and very effective. But that's why I would say his like fighting style is very, like focused on hitting hard, being very effective, and not letting up. Whereas like Ip Man's fighting style is very different. He himself, like Gene, is this very muscular, very strong, imposing guy, and very loud too. Whereas like Ip Man is very quiet, very slender. Donnie Yen had to lose a lot of weight for the movie, and like on average ate one meal a day. So to put in perspective the difference in like presentation of these two characters when they face each other.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, what I like about the Win Chun's fighting style is they even make fun of it at one point, like, oh, wasn't that developed by a woman? And it was developed by two women, in fact. One being a nun, and I believe it was the legend goes that a warlord wanted to marry this one woman. She went to go seek help from this nun. They developed their own martial art and then challenged him to a duel in which he won, and then didn't have to marry that guy. So, I like the style of Wing Chun of like it's always moving. Like it's like you're like flowing around your opponent like water. Like, I don't know. It's very calculated. Like it's
very controlled.
There's no wasted motion or movement, and it's very opposite of what Jin is bringing to the fight, in which he's all energy and aggressive and major swinging, and it feels like Ip Man is just waiting for his moment, and like, okay, I'm waiting for the moment to where I can unleash like 7,000 punches at once, conservatively.
Yeah. It's like if there's one problem with Gene's like style, so to speak, not particularly his style, just his particular approach to fighting. And again, I'm just talking about just Gene here, because I'm just basing off of what I thought the scene is kind of trying to convey, is that because Gene, he's not really a slow glacier, so to speak, either. He's strong and fast and has a decent amount of endurance. So, the first time you see him fight, it looks like he's got basically no weaknesses. He's good with his hands and with, edged weapons and everything. Mm-hmm. But with Ip Man, once it's there, he comes across as a less efficient fighter. Like, as you said, everything, like, he ends up expending a lot of energy, and it's clear that one of the things Ip Man is trying to do is to get him to tire himself out at least a little bit, and then strike without mercy.
Well, I think that's what I got out of it too, is the fact that what I got from this movie is that when you are at a certain level of martial arts, like, there's certain levels of where you're at, and you're never like the best. There's always someone out there better than you, unless you're Ip Man, because like. Even the guy we see him where he has his ass handed to him by Ip Man in the beginning, he shows up later for some fights, and you go like, oh no, he can fight.
No, he's pretty darn
He's
good.
actually pretty good at this. But I feel like once you're at that level, it's like playing chess, where you guys are both making the moves, you know what you're both about to do, you're just waiting for the first person to make a mistake. To just make a mistake, get drawn into a strike or a lull, and then it's almost like every match then is an endurance test or a psychological game.
Except for Ip Man's playing with a stacked board and all his pawns are actually queens.
Well, I mean,
basically,
when you think about it, Jin is holding his own with Ip Man for quite a bit of the fight, but he's spending a lot more of his energy doing so.
Yeah.
Like, in order to keep up with Ip Man, and what's really happening is that he's trying to knock out Ip Man immediately, and Ip Man is just like waiting.
Nah, I'm good.
No, that's okay. I'm good back here. And what's fascinating to me about this guy is, like, so did you guys keep track of how many times Ip Man gets hit in this movie?
Like twice.
He gets struck 4 times.
4 times? Okay.
Two times by the Japanese army when they take him later in the movie.
Okay.
Where he's not fighting. That's not a fight.
Right.
Like, he's getting struck by a bunch of soldiers with guns. When he's actually fighting, he gets struck twice. And that's by the guy at the end, the general.
Fair.
The big bad.
General Muta.
Yeah. So imagine if you're watching a Rocky movie, and Rocky is fighting Ivan Drago and Mr. T and all these other people, and he only gets struck twice by say Ivan Drago or something.
That'd be terrifying.
And it's like, Jesus Christ, how good is this guy at martial arts? Like,
yeah.
And that's what's weird, is that Ip Man there's never even an entertainment that he's going to lose any of these fights.
No.
Like, there's no point where you believe, because he's been portrayed as such an unbelievably great fighter, that there's almost no, even in the second one, they have to introduce new rules for the British boxing match where, oh, you can't use your legs. Like, they have to give him a handicap in order for you to even think he might lose the fight. Like, so without that, and of course we mentioned before, Ip Man doesn't really have since he's portrayed as such an understanding and humble guy in the beginning, he never really has a point where he becomes arrogant or falls from grace or like that sort of thing where the community turns on him or he loses a fight.
He doesn't really have a story arc per se.
Well, he does have to learn somewhat to be like less like, and willing to accept help from others if you count the Mill storyline later.
Yeah.
Which he's
Yeah.
like before he feels it's very it's not honorable to accept help from other people when he could help others.
Even if he had like given money to that person prior and like, here's your money back. Oh no, I won't take that from you.
He's like Mother Teresa with a black belt. Like he like, even at certain points people have to trick him into them helping him.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I can't eat all of this food. Could you help me eat this?
And you say that, and yeah, that's basically what happens.
Like, it's almost
That actually is pretty much the line, yeah.
and it's like it's like reverse psychology on a child. Like, you have to set it in a parameter to where he's helping you.
Yep.
Like, it's a real workaround to try and help this guy. And so if you think about it like that, he does sort of learn a lesson. But not like, I mean, he's
tricked into learning a lesson, kind of.
Yeah, well, he learns about accepting help and responsibility and stuff like that. Otherwise, the story is much more about national pride.
Yeah.
And Ip Man being kind of a cipher for the pride of all of China, really. So in many ways, Ip Man is kind of the soul of China as a character more than he is a character unto himself. And
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably why they even downplayed the cop angle. They downplayed his affiliation, his political affiliations during before and after the war thing, and kind of even they downplay like just his status in general. You know what I mean? Because that is interesting that where in a country, especially during a period of decades where how to distribute wealth was a big question, and he's a man of pretty high means, and that's not exactly. It's kind of like they kind of like tiptoe around it, and they also make sure to go out of their way to show that he is demonstrating solidarity with the people around him, at least the character of Ip Man, you know? So I think they kind of definitely did try and make it so like he's kind of more of an archetype than a specific representation of a specific character.
Yeah. You know who I actually find to be a more interesting character is actually the General. The General character whose name is escaping me. I had it on IMDb.
Muta. General Muta.
Muta.
And it's, asshole Colonel Sato. Is right. the gunman.
Yes, that asshole.
Yeah, that guy who. So these two, like, are the tall man, short man comedy crew to me.
I mean, that's one way of putting it, I suppose.
Except if they were in charge of an army or something, because like this one guy is so animated and so willing to murder people at the drop of a hat.
He looked at the rice wrong. I killed him for it.
Well, I think that's what makes us like General Muto so much more, is that he seems to really have a respect for martial arts, in the fact that he definitely thinks his is better. Like,
Right.
he thinks Japanese.
He says that multiple times.
He says, like, yeah, Japanese kung fu way better, but you know, yours is pretty good. And I do. He's very interested in it. He wants to see it. He wants to see it versus his. He's not very mad when that one master does defeat his students. He's not like, you're a disgrace to his students or anything. He seems just genuinely kind of interested in the styles and how they match up. And he's holding these underground, like, fighting matches during the occupation, which people fight for food, which, of course, that's a little fucked up, but they are the bad guys.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, like, this guy, he seemed like,
fairly honorable.
well, he does give them the rice. He never reneges on the deal.
Right.
When the master, I wish I could remember his name too, the one who gets his ass kicked in the beginning, wants to fight three guys, he legitimately has this look on his face that I thought was interesting. He looks like, oh man, you know what? I respect you for that. Like, you're trying something new, you're pushing your limits. Like, he gives this small little smile, like he's excited to see this guy if he can do it. Like, in a legitimately curious way.
Right.
And I just thought that was interesting for the guy that's supposed to be our our big bad, basically, at the end.
He only really comes off as the villain because he's the enemy general. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. And then, even after that, like, even because he beats the one kid to death, which is what gets Ip Man's hackles up. But Ip Man isn't there for that, and we are. And to be honest, I mean, I don't want to blame the victim or anything, but he kind of asked for it.
I mean, everyone else basically already surrendered, and then the guy's like, oh, he's walking away? I'm gonna hit him in the back of the head. Like, no, don't do that.
He tried to attack him when his back was turned, which I was like, that's not cool.
But that wasn't even the end of it, because then he's like, are you done? Are you giving up? Spits blood in his face.
Yeah, so...
Well, again, it's kind of like this is the dude who's like it's like they are the people who are like occupying their country. So it's kind of like, again, it's kind of that
pride,
pride thing there. It's kind of like a fuck you, and everything, because it was like they do show like in the film, like, you do get a sense that it was very brutal living during that time and everything, and like, so it's kind of like you're getting, he's giving you like food. He's not just because he's not Sato doesn't mean like he's not. Also, like, the character isn't complicit in, like, the regime. I mean, that is why at the end they do have him offer Ip Man a chance to train their troops, and Ip Man, firmly rejects that and still does view him as the villain in that case. So it's kind of like, I mean, but it is kind of like, it's like I think that guy kind of figured he was a dead man anyway, so it's like you might as well kind of go out with some assertion that, you know, I'm not going to take this lying down.
Sure.
You know, that's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah.
Also,
I just find it fascinating that while he is the bad guy, he never really comes off as a complete dick. Like,
he comes off as a dick, but he's not Colonel Sato.
Mm-hmm.
He's
oh
not.
yeah, like,
No, he has a foil.
man, this guy. Man, Sato is such a cartoon villain. Like, he almost takes me out at a certain point, but he does make me laugh. Like, he really does make me laugh of how gloriously, like, evilly he seems to enjoy the pain of others.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I would say that, but it's like I actually did like read a couple accounts from that war and from like other wars, and it's like sadly that's actually not too far removed from how a lot of people get.
Ooh, bummer.
Dead serious. No, I'm dead serious. Like one of those. Yeah, it's like not just during also. I mean, yes, the Second Sino-Japanese War, absolutely. There is a big reason. Yeah, there was a lot of that. But like also during just in like a lot of war. A lot that's pretty much what he does is pretty much what like most war criminals are actually kind of like. No, they literally do stuff like that all the time.
Sure. But he doesn't see them as
even
people.
In Germany, a lot of secretaries used to go out and go hunt for.
Damn.
A lot of people got sent to concentration camps. So like actually the scene where like he's introduced like doing the pew pew like with that little kid, like the kid's doing like a gun motion.
Yeah, that was kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
And then he steps in a frame and he's holding an actual gun to his face and taking advantage of the fact that this kid's like a kid who's just trying to have fun and is actually waving a gun in this kid's face.
Yeah.
Like that stuff, that was actually, I thought like that scene was actually an interesting way of conveying the danger of him. Probably even more so than his wanton killing because it shows like, cause that stuff actually, that was actually, I can totally see why a lot of it would come across as like cartoonishly evil, you know what I mean? And it's not to say like, oh, he isn't there to represent that or be like a stand-in for that kind of a character.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's a particularly deep character, but like actually that scene right there, like that is that doesn't seem out of character with a lot of stuff I've read in a lot of wartime conflicts actually, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, he is reined in by Mira for a lot of it, which helps out.
Mm-hmm.
But I did find that scene, it's also very good because it shows Ip Man is, like, his vulnerability is his family.
Right.
And he can't punch bullets. So, like...
I mean, he can't punch bullets, but he's managed to disarm guns effectively in this movie.
Oh, man, when he takes that revolver in the beginning of the movie, I was like, I don't even care if that's possible. That was awesome. Like, that was fucking cool. Like,
that was a fun bit.
And I mean, technically, he was probably assaulting a police officer, but still pretty rad.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, the main point of the film, like the big climactic fight, happens in the middle where his friend is indeed murdered in front of him, no less. And even the general goes to Sato like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Like, what are you crazy? Don't shoot a gun in here. And I mean, I was kind of with him on that too of like, it's such an enclosed space. You could have easily have hit one of our guys, or it could have ricocheted. What are you doing, you crazy son of a bitch? Like, I mean, also you did murder a man for no reason, but like just logistically, it's not a great idea. And then we see Ip Man finally fight with anger. For the first time.
And some of those people did not walk out of there. I don't care what the movie says, some of them are dead.
They might as well have had him glow yellow and had him just fully turn Super Saiyan. Because it's like he's a monster. Like, I've never actually watched a movie like this where I'm watching the hero beat up people. The bad guys, no less. Like, an occupying army that is subjugating the people, forcing them to fight for food, and just making their lives hell. And I'm going to the guys he's beating up, I'm like, guys, just lay down. Just lay down. Just lay down and pretend you're dead. Lay down and pretend you're dead, because he is not fucking around right now. Because
yeah. It's very interesting the way... It's kind of interesting the way it's shot, too, because, like, whenever they cut away, they do make it like a little ambiguous as to like the level of injuries those people have. But the way it is shot is definitely very interesting because I've seen like, you know, when you see other martial arts films, whenever you see like, you know, violence, in some cases, it's you see so little of like it's like almost like at the point of impact, the camera almost goes away from the recipient in question.
Right.
And this one it lingers just long enough where you see something, but you don't quite see like the probable gore or like, you know, internal bleeding and, you know, hematomas that would kind of come across. Like I swear he like causes a compound fracture and right in one's upper femur.
Yeah. I remember that.
Like,
I remember that very
up
vividly.
At one point, in one case.
He fucking hobbles that guy.
Yeah, he's not coming back up.
Yeah.
And that was one of the, like, he stomps on the first guy's face, and then he hobbles, I think, on, like, the third guy. And I feel like he's just trying to demoralize them or something.
Yeah.
And what I realized, what's scary about this scene is that what I realized I was noticing, but didn't realize I was noticing throughout the other fight scenes was that Ip Man was being very careful about not hurting his opponents and not causing any lasting damage that could make sure that they couldn't fight again. You know what I mean? And in this one, he is looking to hurt people. And he does so viciously that, I mean, there's that one guy, Travis, you remember the one guy who he hits with an uppercut to kind of where the lower jaw meets the neck?
Yeah.
And then that guy goes limp in such a way that you can only imagine, like, oh, that guy is either super dead or he is not walking ever
He's wishing
again.
he was dead.
Like, he hits him, and the guy, like, good acting on whoever the stunt double is, because he goes immediately limp and just falls over and just kind of twitches a little and then doesn't move. Like, I was just like, oh boy. Not to mention the fact that I love the look on the last guy's face, where...
Oh, yeah, that bit was, that was pretty intense, you know, because he's just like, okay, fuck this, no, and he's trying to, like, get out. Ben's like, nope, you signed up for this, dude.
When you're fighting with 10 of your friends and this one guy has just destroyed the previous 9 guys, and you just look around and realize you're the last guy left, like, he has this look on his face, like, I'm pretty sure I heard beep. Like, it just, like, the look on his face is like, there's nothing I can do.
It's sheer terror at that point.
But he still knows he has to try.
I know, he knows that, like, well, I'm honor bound to, like, at least try to fight. But, and then there's the one guy where, I mean, Ip Man just beats on him multiply where, like, he actually, like, where the guy is falling and Ip Man is still hitting him. Like, he falls to his knees, and then he hits him, like, 7 more times. And then
like, the matter of 1 second.
And then he falls onto his face, and then Ip Man hits him in the back a couple more times. And I just kind of want to go, Ip Man, he's dead. He's dead. Stop it. Can't you see he's already dead? Like, it's... And then I love the next 10 guys kind of get up and go, and they're, like, ready to fight. And we get a cut to see some of them, and they're super nervous, too. Like, they're like, oh my god, I hope he doesn't tell us to attack this guy. Really hope that we just kind of let this one go. And, yeah, that was I like that scene afterwards, too, because Ip Man really, like, he goes home to his wife, and he's got his hands are all beat to shit, and he really, like, takes in... Like he gives the rice to with the blood on it to the guy's family.
Yeah, doesn't give the new bag of rice that he still refused, which confuses me.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like the honor bound of, like, that's the rice that he earned, But I mean, if it was me, I would have taken one that wasn't covered in blood because I feel like that's a little traumatizing. But you know, whatever.
Might be like the last. Well, because the thing is I don't remember. Like, because they don't show him bringing the body back to the family, do they? I don't recall that happening in the film.
No, they take the soldiers take the body away, like, and we don't ever see it again.
You might never ever get to bury him again. So that, in a way, that blood splatter on the rice bag might actually be the
yikes,
the remains they have.
Yeah.
That's how I interpreted it, because I don't recall seeing them like say like here's the body, you know, like they return it. They might have just burned it off site.
Wow, yeah, that's depressing. Ugh. Good point, though. I did not think about that. Yeah. I love the little training montage in the middle, too, to train the warriors how to fight. The workers.
The workers.
Workers of the mill, which I think He taught some workers. I think it was in real life. It was a restaurant though, and I don't think they were like under attack. I think he just taught like the workers at this restaurant for some reason.
Just because.
Like, but like it was a fun story beat to have them like practice during the work hours, and then to like finally get their vengeance upon the people that are harassing him, which turns out to be Jin, which is really fun.
And the other kid from the beginning of the movie that lost his kite, who I swear must have had some kind of mental problem.
Well, he's there to kind of give us pathos to the guy that died earlier in the fighting pits that was beat to death by the general, because that was his brother.
Lin, I think.
Also, he's there to show how like people from Ip Man's past keep running into him after the occupation, and they have fallen, and Ip Man has kind of stayed honorable, and they kind of see themselves as like you see like they have failed in their own eyes when they see Ip Man as like, oh shit, this guy still managed to maintain his honor and be a badass during this time, and what did I do? I succumbed to my baser instincts.
I wouldn't say that about the kid because he literally got spanked at the beginning of the movie.
that does seem like a really unnecessary thing for his brother to do to him in front of people. But
yeah, the exposure part.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man, you didn't have to do that.
Well, he literally went like, I don't understand
what. Ip Man says that. Ip Man literally says, dude, you didn't have to do that.
Yeah, I know.
But at the same time, the kid like didn't realize like, what did I do wrong? I don't understand why I'm doing anything wrong. It's like, you don't understand embarrassment? Okay, here you go.
You don't understand shame. I suppose he was embarrassing the master and he wanted to show him embarrassment.
Right.
I suppose it was kind of a tit for tat thing. But I don't know. I thought that part of the story finally comes in later, and I'm like, oh, okay, this was the payoff for that. Because I had forgotten about him for such a long time.
Yeah.
Because that's the only problem I really have with this movie, is that because Ip Man really isn't... I mean, he's the main character.
And a relatable character.
Yeah. He doesn't really go on a huge journey emotionally, and we're kind of with him in respects to China by the end of it, and that's why we're rooting for him at the end. I found that the pacing was just slightly weird. Because... To be honest, I mean, I like the beginning of the movie, but the movie doesn't really get started until the Japanese occupation.
Right.
Like, that's our turn of where, oh, here's where the story gets interesting. The first half hour is just kind of his life beforehand, before all that stuff happens. So, I don't know, I thought that could have been shortened up just a tiny bit. But we do get
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. We do get that awesome fight with Jin, though, so, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But you had a point, Hillary?
Oh, well, it's kind of interesting because I actually kind of like the beginning a lot, precisely because you get, in my opinion, like that's the part when he's when you kind of like get to see what he's like when there's not a crisis going on, and so you kind of get to see a little bit how his family, what his family's like, and like kind of setting up what the community lost. If there's a thing, I would say it's more like, I think the ending is a little rushed, I would say, maybe, because it's not like it's not a bad place to end it, and it's not a bad ending at all. Right. But I mean, like, it's not that it ends at a point that's still kind of got material that could be interesting, and I appreciate they didn't want the movie to be 3 hours long or anything like that, but like, they end with him still having to, again, under different circumstances than in real life, leave his property and like leave the area and everything. And that's kind of interesting that he has to sacrifice something at the end because of the circumstances he's in and how dangerous the situation got. And like that, again, it's not a bad place to end it, but it's not like that's still some interesting material there, and kind of like might have also made a little bit of something to, how do I say this, a little thing to punch up the ending more, because the ending's not bad, but like, I don't think it's like, are we allowed to say like he kind of wins the fight pretty easily and solidly against
there is no stakes to the fight. Like, there's no point, even in the fight, it's like the filmmakers know, like, he's just gonna win. Yeah. Like, there's not really The only stakes really are what happens after that.
Afterward. So again, it's kind of like the movie has to kind of end a little afterward. And I appreciate they try not to make the film too long. It's a really good length. And again, not a terrible spot to end it. Many movies end like this with, okay, yeah, but I must go, like that kind of thing. But it might have been a little more interesting and maybe done more to flesh out his character a little bit if we got to see like his sadness leaving this, beautiful, like really wonderful connected community that he played such a role in, and now he's going to have to leave for at least for a while, if not for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm. And I believe they delve into more of that in the second movie and possibly the third. I haven't seen it yet, but the ideas of community and honor and really just respect overall kind of come through on this movie for me. I mean, I just kind of appreciate it on a technical level, and I do like this film. I mean, one of the technical aspects we do, me and Travis, we sometimes a lot of the times we will watch when it's available English dubs of stuff, just because it's easier for us easy for me to do stuff while we're watching, because then I can edit audio and some other stuff while we're doing it. We did not do that with this film because because the dub was so bad, even by
there was no attempt to it.
Like, it was real bad.
They got whoever was there, whoever was in the studio on that day. It's like, you.
Hey Jeff, you wanna voice It Man?
You wanna voice It Man? I'm just at the bus stop. Good. Bring that enthusiasm to the role.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, and also It Man, Donnie Yen is doing a pretty good job acting as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how good of a job if he's portraying the actual person, but as far as this legendary figure goes,
right, as an acting role,
as an acting role, he's doing a pretty good job in defining like what his character needs to be at any given moment. I think we can go into final thoughts before we go into the spoiler section. The spoiler section is going to be real short.
Yeah, not much to this one.
I mean, you can kind of see where this is going, but I think this film is quite amazing. I really enjoy it as far as martial arts films go. It's interesting to see one that's not about a tournament or a fall from grace movie or a rise to the top or underdog story. Like, this one actually does feel legitimately different about this guy that doesn't really need to learn that big of a lesson. He's already pretty at one with himself and kind of got his shit together. And more of how when everybody else loses their shit around him, how he kind of deals with it, which I find very interesting for a martial arts film. I find it makes it stand out to me in my mind. So I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoy this film, and I think it'll be really enjoyable to you if you have not seen it as well. You should definitely give it a try, and Donnie Yen might be one of the greatest physical performers of our time, and I don't know if we give him enough credit for that. Travis, what do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, this movie has just so many good technical aspects. Like you said before, the camera work is great because it's required to be just to capture Donnie Yen, but the set was amazing. Like, all their set work was great. From what I read on IMDb, it did say the set was designed in Shanghai, but it looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. The only thing I could say is that this story does come off as weird because there's these two almost disconnected parts. I would almost compare it to Inglourious Basterds.
Okay,
where it's got that two different storylines running, except they're actually separated in this one.
At least this one is about the same character.
Yes, that is fair.
I would say that makes because Inglourious Basterds, I feel like I get what you're trying to say, but Inglourious Basterds is so two different movies about two different main characters. Yeah.
No, I agree entirely. Mm-hmm. But it is still just a really good movie about, like I said, not so much the character himself, but just a good portrayal of just kind of wartime. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10, which is how many times he'll hit you in under an eye blink.
Yes.
So, Hillary, we give arbitrary ratings here. You can give it out of 5 or 10 or 78. We don't really care. So just give us your final thoughts and whatever rating you want to give it.
Yeah, this is this is a really solid movie that everybody should check out. It's if you're new to martial arts films, this is a I would say this is a great intro, even if it is kind of different than a lot of other martial arts films. It's something that would definitely pique people's interest. If you've seen a lot of martial arts films and you somehow haven't seen this one and you're looking for something a little different, it'll really it'll add a lot to it. It's got a very it has a lot of interesting one thing I know was really good is that it is still concerned with the overall setup outside of how do we make fights happen. Which again, that's not saying all like fighting films or all action films are like that. But it was really nice to see them interweave this conflict that involves a person with who is just a genius. It is basically unparalleled in terms of his strength and skill, but still applying it to context that'll be a lot more relatable to the audience in question. If you're kind of having that if you seek a movie with an escapist character that still has conflicts that are rooted in things that a lot of people might have some relationship to, like settling public embarrassments or public disputes, or in a lot of cases, or in the case of Chinese history, like a lot of experiencing imperialism. It's a very interesting, real but still very thoughtful take on it. So I'd say if you're not really into martial arts films as much, I'd say 4 out of 5 stars. If you're someone who already likes this kind of stuff, maybe straight up 5 out of 5 stars if you are already a fan of martial arts films. So yeah, everyone should still see it, especially if you're a fan of martial arts films.
That is a strong recommendation from Hillary, and I agree 100%. Now we'll go over to the spoiler section, but first we wanted to thank everyone for listening. If you want to just cut this off right here and then go watch the film before we spoil it, I understand that. Although, trust me, we're not spoiling that much.
No, you're not missing a whole lot.
Yeah.
This is one of the more inconsequential. Like it's not a big deal, so you can stick around. But just in case, I don't want to get tweeted at or whatever. Well, like, you spoiled it, man. Yeah, whatever. History spoiled it, man. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for listening. You can always find us in our back catalog of Netflix and Kills on our UGO podcast on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at UGO podcast or Instagram. It's the same thing. Or you can hit us up on Facebook. Give us a like while you're there. Or you can just send us an email at unapologeticgeekout.com. Suggest for us a film to watch or a guest to have on. We can do that as well. Hillary, would you like to share any of the social media with people, or do you want to remain anonymous?
Basically, I'd say if you like me, ask for me back. Otherwise, it's nice to meet everybody. That's kind of it for right now. I don't really have much of a presence outside of this. If you want me back, ask for me back or invite me back. That's all. Thank you. I'm grateful to have shared the airtime with you too. This has been really fun talking about it, man.
Yeah, it has been fun recording with you, and I love the fact that we have our own closed doors recording sessions with her. She's like her own Ip Man of recordings. I don't record in public very often.
When we need her, we send out the light.
I work at a hospital, and I'm applying to grad school. If you want to know about the enigma that is me, ask for me back, because I actually do like talking about movies. So. Kidding.
All right. So
thank you. It's already been a gift just to be here. Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us, Hillary. We're going to take a small musical break, and we'll be back with the spoiler section right after this.
Yay!
Welcome to the spoiler section for Ip Man. Ip Man wins, guys. Okay, bye.
Also, spoiler, don't start a land war in China.
Spoiled it for me.
Well, I mean, when man, that does always confuse me when you read it in history class. This country invaded this country, and you're like, whoa, that country? That sliver on the map that I can't see very well?
I just imagine this little chihuahua attacking a Saint Bernard. Why are you attacking me? Don't do that.
Well, I mean, when you take it into historical context and the military force and the weaponry Japan had, and the versus the North, they did have a very big strategical advantage once they hit the mainland. It's like, but we're not here to talk about World War II history. We're here to talk about Ip Man and how it deals with World War II history. And I like that the end of the fight really, on some levels I do like that it's pretty well, just like, not a lot of final fights are like, a lot of final fights are very close, like, or maybe sometimes our hero will even barely lose but earn the respect of everyone around. Mm-hmm. This one is not like that.
No.
Ip Man just basically wins. Like, again, he only gets hit twice. Like, and what's interesting about this is that he hits Miru so many times, like, and defeats him, so much so that the actor that portraying the general actually got physically hurt on set. He actually experienced a concussion when he got hit 4 times.
I mean, to be fair, he's lucky it was just that.
The actor in real life as his opponent got hit more times than the fictional character of our hero. Like,
wow.
Like, it's interesting to me to learn that they went with that as the direction. But I feel like the movie never really makes that's not what the main tension is. Even the movie doesn't even seem to think like that's what the main tension is. Like, nah, Ip Man's pretty much going to win this fight. But what's the real, like, what Hillary already said before is that the sacrifice he has to make is abandoning his community, at least for a while. I mean, I also like the scene at the very end of like, oh, would you like to train my son here, like this little whippersnapper, and it's like, what's your name? What's your name, kid? Bruce. That's a dumb name. Fuck you, kid. And he kicks out of here. And it's like, not yet, young Lee. You have not earned it yet.
Yeah.
Which I also find very interesting that the guy, this was one of the Bruce Lee's most famous teachers, because he's portrayed as one of the nicest, most humble people in the world, and Bruce Lee was not known for that.
Not really.
Known as a much more emotional and volatile guy than his master. Apparently, he did not take that life lesson with him. But yeah, I feel like it seems like, does Ip Man have more movies based about him than Bruce Lee does now, based on him? I know Bruce Lee has more movies,
right?
Yeah.
But biopics.
But by biopics,
because there's also the Grand Master, which most people say is not very good. Let's see. There's what was it?
Oh, and Travis is right.
There's at least 3 different film franchises that are around him.
Yeah,
specific Ip Man, like in the legend of Ip Man throughout his life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I guess it's kind of like it's kind of an interesting version of like the Big Boss versus Solid Snake kind of thing.
Man, I love even a Metal Gear Solid reference. I knew it was a right decision to have you on, Hillary.
Yay, thank you.
That's great. But
it's interesting because it's like in the way they frame General Muta is kind of like, it's a little bit like, okay, spoilers for season 5 of Breaking Bad. Skip a couple seconds ahead if you don't want to hear this.
We're in the spoiler section.
Spoilers, here it is. Kind of like how in the last season of Breaking Bad, there is an antagonist, i.e. like the last Jack and his group.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Have to face, but they're not really the primary antagonist and concern of the narrative at that point.
No.
So it's kind of a little bit here. Like, it's less a specific, it's more concerned with the general concept of occupation and oppression rather than specifically Muta, or even specifically Sato, who is far less sympathetic. It's more like painting like this whole occupation is the villain at a certain point, because even if Ip Man fights off, because he does fight off General Muta in the end, and it still isn't enough to protect him fully. And even the movie makes it clear it's not like the war ended because Ip Man punched him. It's a little different from even Rocky, like 4. It's like Rocky 4 in that, like, yeah, like his fighting skills are pivotal to solving this conflict. But because in this case, I would say this, if anything, it maybe makes a little more sense in this movie because there is nothing about invoked in the geopolitics, really, aside from just Rocky's from America, Dragon's from the USSR. But here, it's about, like, fighting style being tied to self-worth and national identity. So him winning and also teaching the people in, like, the factors and means of defending themselves has more of a lasting consequence and seems to actually mean more in terms of strategy, I would say, or tactics at the very least, you know? So it seems like, if anything, like so while you do get a little bit less of that, like those like fun character moments, because the characters aren't really having fun, you kind of get a little, the resolution has a focus of how are we asserting our cultural identity and our ability to survive against a force that is oppressing us and colonizing us.
Indeed. Yeah, it's almost like the creators thought, like, yeah, it'd be a little silly if he just won the war all by himself, if he just made a speech with half of his mouth moving.
Yeah, it might be a little, like, might not quite might not resonate with a lot of people who might have, like, you know, ancestors pretty recent ancestors who died in the wars, and they'd be like, yeah, maybe it's not.
We're not so different. We're not so different, you and I.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Look, Americans, we don't require much, let's face it.
Man, should we do Rocky 4 for the podcast?
Is it on?
I'm going to check it now, because I really want to do it.
Wait, so in all seriousness, though, I know with the controversy, wasn't there actually a bit of controversy in real life surrounding the film when a couple of families whose like ancestors, when featured in the film, were seen as weaker than Ip Man? Because there's many different branches. There's like 5 different branches of Wing Chun martial arts, and doesn't he beat a few of these like figures, either who are directly named or referenced in the movie? And I heard that like offended a couple family members, so the director, or at least the producer, had to go meet with them and like apologize for it. Was that the case?
I actually did not hear about that.
Me neither.
Although I do think it would be understandable, because they do make the lower the other martial arts schools that are in the one section of town, because that's like the martial arts section of town, which is interesting. The economy, like the economy of space in this town, is really weird, but I find really cool. And they do treat them like they're like sub bosses. Like they're the gyms you go to early in Pokemon training. Like they only have like they don't even have a full roster. Like they're not really that much of a threat. And they do portray Ip Man as being like 1,000 times better than them.
Right.
Like not even, like nowhere near on his same level. So I do understand why someone would be kind of pissed.
I'm just imagining Donnie Yen looking down, someone just going, "Get on my level."
Well, I mean, he even does say, "Thank you for going easy on me," which is kind of the nice way of saying, "Haha, fuck you."
Yeah.
Like I get it. He's trying to say, like, he's trying to help them save face, you know, of like, "Hey, thanks for taking it easy on me and being a nice guy." When it's really like, "Oh, yeah, I was taking it easy on you." Sure, like it's giving him an out, but it really feels like a kind of a backhanded compliment. And yeah, I would understand. I don't know, like I did not hear about that story, but I do understand if someone might be upset if their ancestor was portrayed as say the first guy that fights Ip Man,
right?
Yeah,
because he doesn't come off good in this movie. Like, at all.
He's not, like, bad, he's not a villain, but he doesn't come across as very awe-inspiring or anything like that.
No, especially when you see him later, like, scrounging for rice. It's like, we see our character so noble and, like, I am just better than everyone. This guy's like, I will do anything for my family to get food. Or just even myself, because fuck it.
Yeah, indeed. Well, is there anything else anyone wanted to mention before we wrap it up here, guys? No? Everyone good? Hillary, you good?
I think so. I think so. I guess. I mean, this is more just about the first film, but did seeing the second film color your opinion of the first film in any way?
Well, I do like the first film's villains a lot better now that I've seen 2. The first time I watched number 1, I found them like, you know, there's not like I found the secondary character a little too cartoony, and then I thought like the general like oh he's interesting, but he's kind of like not a big foil for Ip Man. Like he's not like a big thing for him to fight. I very much have turned my opinion around on that. I actually like General Muda much more now. I feel like he's a very nuanced character that I find very interesting. Because in 2, they have this British guy that is such a British cartoon character of like a put him up. Like he's so over the top ridiculous, and he snarls, and like they treat him like he actually is a bear or some sort of animal than an actual real human being. Yeah. Like-
you're winning me over on this one. That guy sounds great.
I'm not gonna lie, it's fun to watch him, but
in a different movie, probably be better.
subtlety is not the word of the day in that
no.
movie. So I think I appreciate this one more of like, oh, you know what, you're Rocky, and then the Ip Man 2 is kind of the Rocky 2 of the movies here, like as far as tone goes. So yeah, that it did color my perspective of the first one a little bit in a better light now that I think about it. Anyway, we are Unapologetic Geek Out, and we're out.